And so welcome to everybody. And before we get started in our discussion of the book, I want to do a special shout out to Susana Jimenez Muller, who's someone that I've gotten to know here in Tampa, who's an extraordinary woman because she's like, I call her like a jack of all trades. She's a podcaster. She's got a great Cuban stories podcast called The Green Plantain. I was honored to have been featured on my parents' love story was featured on a couple of her episodes and published in her recent book of those stories that she presents on The Green Plantain. She also is very heavily involved in, I guess, publication of books, and she's designed the covers for a number of the books that we've read here in our book club. And she's also a friend. We're going to do lunch soon. But why don't you tell us, Gladys, what Susana did with you briefly for your book?
Okay, Susana, I consider her my fairy godmother because
Ah,
she makes magic. She has a magic wand and she makes magic. You give her a book that is different chapters and things that they don't go together, and she makes it happen. She is an artist. I mean, her covers, every time I see one of her covers, they're amazing, beautiful, and she has so much patience. Now we're working, she's working and I'm working with her in the translation of my book in Spanish, and she has a lot of patience, and we communicate very well because I'm picky and she's picky too. So she's
I think we're all
wonderful.
kind of I think we're a picky group.
Yeah.
I'm
Hi,
not picky,
Ismael.
picky.
How are you?
Lovely.
We
Hello, how are you?
have since had Ismael, one of our other regular members, join us, a very enthusiastic reader. I'm always getting notifications of the latest book
Uh,
that he's read, that he's interested in us reading, and it's very nice, just like Alvaro and Luis and the others. So, yeah, Susana's amazing. Susana, you can just kind of hide yourself for a minute, you know. And she's quite
You're embarrassing me.
okay, just
Thank you.
roll with it,
I'm
as they say, roll with it. But I'm really excited that, I've met a couple of very interesting ladies that we went together, she and I, and one of the authors from Tampa, Betty, a good friend, a mutual friend of ours. We went to see an exhibit on the Cuban immigration experience at the Tampa Historical Center, and there's other things. We've also attended on a talk on Jose Marti, and I mean, it's nice to have somebody to collaborate in the things that I'm particularly interested in. She is too, and Betty too. So it's been great. But anyway, we're going to get to formally acknowledge Gladys Barrio, who's the author of this very fascinating book about her family's journey. So we're delighted to have you with us tonight, Gladys. I would just like to say that for me, reading your book provided me a kind of a revisiting of the fact that, so many of us come from transplanted Spaniards or people from other countries to Cuba, and then again to the United States. So I think the fact that you were able to weave your story together, the fact that you had so much information on your family, the fact that you stayed so connected as a family, afforded you that ability to really share all the various, points in history that your family experienced. I thought it was fascinating. It reminded me of a lot of things that I had not really reflected on, and that was certainly one of them. So thank you for that.
Thank
Um, so yeah, I just want to open up the floor to anybody that has any comments or questions about Gladys's story, and then she will weave in some points that she's interested in discussing. Yes, Gladys, do you have anything you would like to say first?
Yes, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Marta. Thank you for each one of you. Thank you, Ginger, for being here. Thank you, Susana, for being here and for everything you do. And thank you to all of you because I really have enjoyed the past meetings that I have attended. I think you're a group of very thorough and avid readers. And before I go on, I want to introduce my fiance, Jesus, that reason that he's here, well, he's here with me.
God, I live here.
Hi, Jesus.
I'm right now in Raleigh, North Carolina with him. But he is my historian, and he is, because he's a mathematician, he's the one who keeps me accurate with the statements and the historical facts. When I deviate a little bit, he says, no. And he's also an avid reader. Last month that we had Bacardi and the Long Fight for Cuba, he has been telling me about that book for such a long time. He loved that book. He read it many, many years ago. So he has been a really big part in the production of this book of mine. So
Take a look. Say hi to them.
yes, okay.
Hi, I wanted to know, take a look at the people in the group.
Look, Ginger is here.
Hello.
Hi, Jesus.
Ginger happens
Ginger.
To be the mother of one of Jesus' graduate students. He's a PhD student. He's a professor at the university, and Adam, her son, was his student.
What university, if you don't mind my asking, Jesus?
North Carolina State University.
Oh, okay.
Adam finished his PhD under my direction a few years ago. And anyway, I'm glad you're here, Ginger. I'm glad to see all of you. I have heard very positive things about all of you. Susana, hi. So anyway,
I'm telling him all the time about Susana. So
okay, so it's a pleasure to see you and put some faces together with some of the nice things Gladys has said about you.
Thank you so much. Gladys, when I read your dedication, that at the end, it said, and a special thanks to Jesus. And I thought you were thanking Jesus. And then I kept reading. And then it said,
Jesus.
Susana said
you might be killing two birds with one stone. I don't know, but it was funny.
I see that all the time, actually. Signs on the road. Thank you, Jesus. And I know
right? You're always inspired with that statement, right? Anyway, so yes, Gladys, so would you like to tell us a little bit about, I know a little bit about your background, and obviously we know a little bit about the trajectory of your life and career, but you might want to fill in a few blanks if you would.
Okay, so as you know, I was born in Cuba, and then at the age of 9, it was when the book starts that Castro came into power, and then my parents went into the first chapter, that is fear, because they didn't know what to do with us. And then we were sent to Jamaica, my sister and I. And then from there, we went to Puerto Rico. I was raised most of the time in Puerto Rico. And as a matter of fact, although he's my fiance, he was my boyfriend and we met in Puerto Rico when we were both 19.
Nice.
So that's so then I left Puerto Rico when I went for graduate school at Ohio State University. If anybody's from Ohio, I'm a
my husband's in Columbus right now. He's from Columbus. Yeah, his father actually taught law for a while at the school, and his mother was the secretary to the dean of the law school. So a lot of connect, and the whole family's big Ohio State fans, because who isn't in Columbus, So yeah, that's funny.
So they're probably Buckeyes like I am.
Oh, Buckeyes all the way. Yes. Not Michigan.
So anyway, I love Ohio, but the weather was horrendous. I was used to them Cuba, Miami weather, and Ohio was so cold that University of Miami offered me a dual program of a master's and a PhD with one thesis. And I transferred to University of Miami, and that's why I'm in Miami right now. I got married, have two daughters, two beautiful daughters, and I have 5 grandkids. And when I started my career is in chemistry. The first thing that I did was I did some research, and I have some scientific publications in chemistry, which are very different. Chemistry publication is very different to, or science papers, publications are very, very different to a regular book. So, I mean, to write this book, I had to train myself all over. So, and then I worked in research, and then I joined Dade County Public Schools. I work also as professor, as adjunct professor at the University of Miami, FIU, and Miami-Dade. And the last part of my career was I was a science supervisor and executive director for science programs at the Miami-Dade County Public Schools. However, when I retired, something came into me that I said, I have to write some of these stories. So since I didn't have any training in writing, I walked into Oli. Do you know that Oli program?
Oh, yeah. In
Yeah.
Tampa?
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
everywhere? Because I know they
Yes.
have it in Tampa.
They have
Is
one
the-
here in Boca Raton as well.
They
Yes.
do? So it must be, is it a statewide program or?
No, this is a program with the guy who founded that program. His name was Osher
Right.
Learning, and
Right.
he gave that grant to several universities. There's one here in Raleigh also. Raleigh,
Oh,
North.
there is. So it's national. It's not like it depends, but
It's
national. Okay.
there's a lot of the universities have that program. Not all the universities,
Why
but a
don't
lot.
you explain for a minute what that is for those that don't know, which I think is great.
I know it's wonderful. It's a program for 55 and over, and then it's part of the university, and they offer all kind of courses that you can take there, from yoga to Middle Eastern culture to art to music to it's amazing the courses that they have. Every time I go for registration, I want to register for all the courses, and of course I don't have
Is it
time.
So it's
free?
basically auditing. They're letting you audit course. Like you're not getting
No,
credit, but
the auditing is part of the program, but they have their own courses. And like, for
oh, they
example,
have their own courses. But so
yes,
in other, yeah. So it's not. It's sort of like a continuing ed, so to speak.
you can audit a course, because I tried to audit a physics course, but I never had a chance. But you can also take their courses, and that's where I took creative writing. So I took a course on creative writing, and another one that was a writer's workshop. And in those courses, I started writing my stories. Like I just wanted to write my stories. And as a matter of fact, I put together a book that I never published of stories about my daughters and my grandkids. And I just put that together for my kids and gave it to them on Mother's Day. But that was never published. And then, but then I started to write all these stories. Marta, you were saying that you thought I was lucky that I kept track of all those stories. You know what the key of that was? That my
Your
my
father.
parents, my family, they live a long life. I
Right.
have I have a grandmother that lived to 104. The aunt who told me all the stories about the Civil War, she died at the age of 98, and her
Right.
mind was perfect. And she was the one who told me those first few chapters about the Spanish Civil War. Then I still have my aunt that is 97, and she she told me the stories on my father's side of the 5 orphan siblings on my father's side. So I mean, that was the advantage. I had the historians of my family alive until last year, my aunt Aurora, and this I still have my aunt Pilar that tells me all the stories.
Oh, cool.
And yes, and also my dad,
Yeah.
In the last chapter that we have that meet on the one before last where
Yeah.
I finally meet my mother and
Yeah.
father.
Birthday.
My father sat down that day and it was beautiful. He told us all these stories of when he met my mother and he was surrounded by all the grandkids and I was taking notes. Somebody in my family was taking notes and I said, I have to put all this together. So that's the
You're
advantage that I had.
you're lucky because not only did they live long, but they had very good memories,
Yes.
I'm sure that a number of us that read these stories get this yearning because I know I do that. I wish my parents were alive today to ask them all the questions that I meant to ask them. Although I was kind of a curious kid and I would ask them things, but they were busy with their lives. They couldn't really sit down. When it was later on, they could have, but then they got sick and so on. I really feel like I missed out on that because they had good memories. That generation, I mean, they they have really, I mean, as a general rule, if they live long, they have incredible memories. And
But Marta, you know what happened? People don't ask. They don't ask their
I know.
investors. And my message with this book, every time I present, and I know I have a young crowd, I said, please sit down with your father, mother, abuela, whatever, and ask them their stories. Their stories you sit down sometimes in front of Netflix and the stories are garbage, they're not good. And then your ancestors may have very powerful and beautiful stories, but we don't ask,
Yeah, I think part of it, we get busy with our lives and,
yeah,
I mean, I know I was a little distracted with raising the four kids, the life, the careers, everything. It's just it gets in the way and then it's too late. It's a really good message. I applaud you for reminding everybody of that because it's true. But so anyway, I have a few questions. I don't know if others do. Anybody else want to start with questions?
I well, I'd like to comment.
Yes.
I love the last story of your father meeting with your mother. My mother had dementia, and my mom passed away in June. She was 108.
oh my
And
God.
108, that's crazy.
I was so impressed with her reaction to your father and the love that was still there. I mean, I just cried when I read that. It was so beautiful. And it was so brave of you to take a chance because it could have been a disaster, a total disaster. But you did it and you created the most wonderful memory for your whole family. God bless you for doing that. Really.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you. It was, I think it's the most beautiful day of my life. That
Uh,
day for me and for everybody in the family. It was amazing. And I sometimes when you write something, you don't know if you can really convey. But I
You
don't.
did.
When I got to the home, that my brother-in-law and my sister, they look at me and they say, "You're crazy," and I said, "I have to do this. We don't have too many more."
Opportunities.
In time.
Opportunities. Yeah.
And
But
you
even,
did it. You made it happen.
but even the way you describe dementia, which is so real, which people don't understand, is it comes and goes,
Yes.
and it was just the perfect moment for your mother. How wonderful.
Yeah. My mother is still alive.
Yeah.
She's gonna be 100 in May.
Wow.
And I visit her every day. She was in my house until last year, but now she's a very, very good ALF in Miami.
Yeah, that's where my mother was too. My mother was in a home like that too.
Yes, and it's funny, like one day and then the next day she tells me all these stories that I laugh so much with her. The dementia has a beautiful dimension. I have a critique group, and sometimes I send them stories about my mom's dementia, and they say, this is such a sad situation, and you make it so much fun because myself, I cannot believe the things that she come up with, you know. Like there's a story where she said, "Where are those ladies with the beautiful dresses coming to my house to dance?" And I'm saying, "What are you talking about?" And then my daughter says, "Mom, now she really lost it." And I said, "No, Jenny, keep asking her. Maybe it's something that she has in the back of her mind of something from
Sometimes it's a
Spain."
dream too.
From Spain, because the way she
Oh.
described it, it looked like the ladies were dressed like these Spanish dresses. And so I said, that's something. So when she comes up with all these ideas, it's fascinating to me, you know, because I know that somewhere in her brain,
And memory, maybe.
there's little things hidden here and there that
It's like a mystery, you know, a mystery that could be solved, you know, kind
yeah.
of interesting, right? Yeah.
Does she know you?
Yes, yes, you know, when I went there yesterday, I asked, and she couldn't, she's a little blind and deaf, and, you know, so I grabbed her in the back and I hugged her, and she said, "Let me see your face." And when I look at her, she says, who am I?" And she says, "Your daughter." And I said, "No, I'm your daughter." No. But yes, she knows that I'm the daughter. She knows that. She recognizes me and my daughter. Of my two daughters, she recognizes one of them because that was the love. Her love was the oldest granddaughter. So
Hey,
It's very
Gladys, I have a
nice.
question.
yes,
Is this first of all, congratulations on the book.
thank you.
That's a great accomplishment to make this book. But I was wondering, your family is so interesting. I mean, there's so many interesting things that happened with in the Civil War when they were there, and the escapes, and then the stowaways to Cuba, and all this. I was just wondering, when you were getting these stories from your family, were you like, "Oh my God, this is incredible! I can't believe my family went." I mean, were you like, "This is like so interesting. This is great. This will make a great story." Were you like surprised to learn all these things?
I was surprised. I mesmerized by their stories, and I said that's why I said I have to write this because my daughters and my grandkids and my nephews and nieces, they have to know this. They have to know what our ancestors went through because now their lives are very simple. I mean, the young people that surrounds me, their life are very simple, but they're very simple because our ancestors went through so much. And then, so when they were telling me these stories, that's why I said, I have to sit down and write this so that, you know, I need to leave this legacy so that my grandkids can read it now and later when it makes more sense to them because now they're little. But I really wanted to leave that. So thank you so much, Ismael, for that comment. Yeah.
Gladys, I have to tell you that I was very impressed that you're a scientist and you were able to write a book that chronicles the family, their feelings, their emotions, everything that happened in such a real, interesting way, easy to read. And I didn't want to put the book down. I said, no, one more chapter tonight. It was enjoyable reading. And you're a scientist. So that's such an accomplishment that you have two sides to you and maybe more. But it was wonderful. And so many names. I'm glad you put the genealogy at the end because
Yeah.
I often went back. Who's married to who? Is that a nephew? Is that an aunt? Un tío? ¿Quién? Un abuelo? It was to keep up. And thank you for that. It was excellent. I'm going to reread it a third time.
Oh my God.
Yes,
Thank you.
it
Thank
was
you.
enjoyable reading, and what accomplishments your family had. What strength to move on and get ahead. They really had tremendous push. Tremendous.
Yes, that's why the second title is A Journey of Resilience, because when
Oh,
I
yeah.
you know how resilient my dad was like that. He wouldn't
Push.
stop. These Spaniards, they were such hardworking people. They worked really hard. They never
Yes.
wanted to spend a penny. They wanted to leave everything for their kids. They were amazing, amazing. So yes, thank you, Rita, for that comment.
Excellent.
I want to add my feelings about the book too. I absolutely loved it. And I think that you did something that's very, very important historically, because this is an event that people should know about. They should know about the Cuban history. They should know how exiles had to live and adapt and adjust, how difficult it was, that it's not something that you just snap your fingers and it's all taken care of. People have a tendency as history goes by to start to modify it or tell different stories. And the fact that you documented everything and have the story out there makes it concrete, and it protects and conserves the history. And I really appreciated that you did that. I was in college when Castro took over. And so as an adult, I watched everything that was happening. And I was in New York, and I was involved with Rescate and a few organizations to try to help the exiles. So I understood and felt so much what you were saying. And the book is wonderful, and it's very important, because nobody can take away from the history what is actual fact.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for that. And let me tell you, that's another message that I wanted to convey with this book. The feelings of the immigrants. There's a section in the front that has some of the reviews, and then I wanted to read this one that is similar to what you just said, Terry. It says, one of the most compelling aspects of the novel is its exploration of the immigration experience and the search for belonging in a new land. As the Barrio Castañer family navigates the challenges of starting anew in the new world, they encounter discrimination, poverty, and cultural barriers. Yet, amidst the hardships, they also find moments of joy, friendship, love, highlighting the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. So that summarizes, Terry, what you just said, and summarizes like what I really wanted to convey with this book, because I have encountered people that they have no idea. They hear about immigrants and they hear, but they have no idea what they go through.
You
Yes.
know, Gladys, another thing that and I echo everything that everybody said so far. I think all very valid points. And the other thing that I was struck by was towards the end of the book when you discuss, the question of resilience, right? So I've often thought about that myself, because in my own family, I have had both. I've seen incidents of people, reinventing themselves in exile and recapturing their past, careers and so on and so forth. And then others where they sort of gave up. There must have been, and I've often wondered if it's not just, what it takes, right? But if it's some kind of like sort of exacerbation or just kind of a desire to just give up because you've lost so much. It's very hard to overcome an enormous loss, and you just kind of want to, circle the wagons and just kind of be in a comfort zone and not really kind of venture out and start all over again. I just thought that was a very important point to make, because most of the stories that we read, frankly, are the stories of success, the stories of overcoming obstacles and moving ahead and, and breaking through and really conquering all the challenges that come with these situations. And of course, your family history is one of enormous resilience. But I thought it was a very interesting thing that you did at the end of the book, where you tried to sort of explain and make sense of why that happens for some people and not for others. Because I think there just is, obviously many, many more stories of people who never kind of, recaptured what they had.
Marta, what I have found is that the communist regime in Cuba have changed not only the country, destroyed the country, but they have changed the mentality
Oh,
the attitude of those millions of people that stay behind, because I see the recently arrived Cubans in Miami. Like every time I get into an Uber and where are you from? Cuba. And then the one who brought me from Miami to the airport in my way here yesterday, she told me I was starting to study medicine in Cuba, but I left, and now no, that was the lady who did my nails.
the nails.
Oh, I'm doing nails. And I said, no, you cannot do nails. You have to go back and study. And then I said, at least start with English, study English. And then they tell me, oh no, I have to make money because I have to pay my bills. And I said, and the Uber lady, I told her, imagine that tomorrow there's no Uber. That they have those like in the Jetson, the flying cars that they require a driver, and Ubers are not required. What are you gonna do? You have to study, you know. And but they have lost that, and that's so sad. I don't like to see my people losing that drive that it was so innate in the Cuban personality.
Spirit. Yeah, really. But
Yeah.
it's interesting too. What I've noticed is, there's this perception that they can come here and at least with some people, that they can come here and then live a really good, comfortable life without hard work. And when they have to work hard, because unfortunately what socialism does is it strips you of any kind of incentive, because no matter how hard you work, you're not going to get much ahead unless you have connections, whatever. So I think that happens too. I'm reminded of a story. I have a family member who spent 10 years in prison as political prisoner. She never wants to talk about it. I'd love to write her story because she's quite old, but anyway, she took an Uber ride with this guy who recently arrived from Cuba, and he's on the phone with his girlfriend on speaker in Spanish, and she's like 96, but very outspoken, because as you can imagine, a woman who survived 10 years in prison, she's feisty. And the guy goes on to say in Spanish how, you know, I thought it would be like a piece of cake. It's so much work here. I'm so tired. They're working me so hard. She lost it. And her niece, she never married. Her niece said she almost had a heart attack when she told her the story, because she said, you could have been killed. She yelled at him and told him off and said, if you don't like it, why don't you go back and sit on the malecón and échate fresco? Vete, regresa a Cuba, siéntate en el malecón y échate fresco. Like if you don't want to work, then just go back. And I thought it was the funniest story. I mean, she was a little more adamant than that, but the bottom line was she was like she wasn't having it
But
because
Marta, that's what they have done during the last 60 years. They have done very little. They have, and I mentioned that in the book. The government has made them just, only the quest for food takes all of their time, all of their mind, all of their energy. So that's the only thing they think about. Where am I gonna get food? What am I gonna get next? And then it's not. I sometimes I feel it's not their fault. It's the government, the environment, the
the
situation.
system does it. The system, they take away like anything, also the spirituality, right? So there's no sort of like aspiration of something higher, a higher anything. So, then, it can become very materialistic. I'm going to go to the United States and I'll make a lot of money. You're going to drive a fancy car and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, obviously, but there are those people that have been affected in that way by the regime, and that's historically what socialism and communism can do, is just strip that motivation away. Because what's the point, right?
Well, it's a form of indoctrination. Once they control the food supply and medical,
Oh yeah.
those are the two basic factors. They control everything. And, you're stuck. People don't have a chance. They change your mind, and it's indoctrination.
Yeah.
And then there's also no reward for
Right.
your hard work. You're not
Right.
chosen for
Right.
a position based on your ability. You're chosen because of your ideology.
Right.
One of the things I learned during the pre-med studio and in the early 60s, the people who were coming from Cuba, when they were spoken about by people who were professionals in dealing with this, talked about social capital and talked about the education that people came with, that because of the presence of Cubans in Miami, Miami became an international financial center because people came with the ability to take those jobs. And then because they spoke Spanish, they could communicate with Latin America. And it totally turned Miami around from what it once was. And that was because of the Cuban presence.
Yeah, I was in Havana actually last year, and I met with and I went to this one store. It was a dried fruit. There's a little bit of private enterprise, but it's really minimal. It's really minimal. And he had started his own business, a dried fruit business, and he was telling me he was actually an economics professor at one time, and him and his brother started this little storefront selling dried fruit. And he was just telling me the obstacles to starting to running your own business are so hard. I mean, imagine here it's hard, but imagine there it's like 100 times harder. Every little thing is bureaucracy and get approval for this and that. But it was very interesting. There are some a little bit out there, but it's just very difficult to succeed.
If I may add, thank you again for having me on here tonight. It's been wonderful to listen to everyone. I was in Cuba in 2019 for the first time. I left when I was 5, and I did not know what to expect. And what you're saying is exactly correct. All these professionals are now not working in their professions, but are working, in something else. But what I've been taking some notes as I listen to you, and one of the things that I want to say is that we are all living history, and this is a great opportunity to write down your own experiences, because every person has a story, and every family has a story, and I know some of you may be writers, and I wanted to give you a software. The name of the software that I use is called Scrivener, and it allows you to organize your thoughts and your research. I am also a genealogist, and so that's one of the reasons that I really loved working with Gladys so much, is because I've been doing genealogy since I was 13, and I'm also a chemist, so we have a lot in common. But anyway, Scrivener, if you want to write that down, it's a great tool to use if you want to keep track of your stories and your research.
What does it do? Does it prompt you? Did it prompt you? Or?
No, it's an organizational type of software. So it's almost, if you think of a binder, and in a binder you have different tabs. You have one for research, one for pictures. You can keep track of all your research. It also allows you to write notes, build characters, build situations, also a little bit of world building, if you will, although it's not just for science fiction type of writing, but I highly recommend it. Some writers use it to actually write their novel, but I find that Word does an excellent work. It's an excellent tool for that type of work. But Scrivener is great for tracking all your research, and especially if you're tracking from one country to another and everything that you've gone through, and then inserting history into it. That's a great way. I just wanted to end with saying that one of the things that really loved about working with Gladys and the story is Papa Matea Mariano. Matea Mariano. But if you read carefully the internal monologue of the dad and the son, how much it tells about the person. I mean, you could read that chapter and come away with so many different angles as to the diversity, right? And acceptance of people
It's funny, I
similar to
think
you.
there's a Netflix, or I forget, I like mystery shows, and there's some it reminded me of some show that's or movie that's out where there's a prominent lawyer or something, and he's trying to deal with the fact that his
Yes.
son had a DUI or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly which
Yeah,
one.
and
Yes.
it reminded me of that, brought me to that moment of like, what do you do as a parent? What's the right thing to do as a parent, you know?
But
And
how gracious he was. I
oh
mean, how
yeah,
gracious.
Oh,
Not to
my,
say, oh, you're going to go sit in the corner or I'm going to beat you, ¿dónde está la chancleta? It was nothing like that.
yeah.
So the
No, well, I don't know if it
internal,
was so typical Cuban though.
no, remember he was a Spaniard. He says he was from Spain. My
Yeah,
my 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 my
yeah,
grandfather.
yeah.
So, but that's the way he was. He was a very admirable man. He they the love story between my grandfather and my grandmother was amazing. I wish I could have conveyed that better. But my grandfather, he let me tell you, he was a very good looking man. He was very good looking, very his personality was, and my dad said that he respected him so much. One time my dad got home, he had a few more drinks that he should have, and he didn't expect my grandfather to open the door. And when my grandfather opened the door, my dad said that he suddenly, all the drunkenness that he had went away suddenly because he was so scared. That's it. But he never put a hand on them. It was just his personality that his kids respected him, and everybody respected him and loved him, and he had an amazing personality. Just him I could have written a whole book just on his
Oh,
personality.
nice. Well, your father too, honestly, your father was a
Yeah.
wonderful human being. I mean, it takes somebody like that to really, oh, not all of us have had that experience with our own family members that were in a position to help and helped in the way that he did. So, I mean, he was an admirable person too.
Let me tell you, when I first gave the book to Susana, the title was the Tunnel of Hope. And the reason that I wanted to entitle that, but Susana told me there's a lot of books like that, and I researched with that title. But the reason was that my dad was like the tunnel of hope for everyone in the family. Everyone, since he was one of the first ones to leave Cuba, all the family were calling, my son is being called to the military, can I send my son over, we are coming over. And then people will tell me that when they arrived in Puerto Rico at that time, they had a job, they had an apartment rented, they had food in the refrigerator. So he was amazing. He did that for every single member of the family and friends, and he helped everybody. So that's yes.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, he left you as legacy, but boy, I tell you, I'd be so, so proud of my dad, knowing that he was that kind of person, you know?
Yes. Jesus wanted to say
Would
something.
I would like to interject. I'm not an official part of this group, and but I would like to interject something regarding the situation with all the differences between Cubans who arrived many years ago and Cubans who have arrived uh, just a short while ago. I think that it is very likely that the Cuban regime over the last 60 years or so, has had a detrimental effect, perhaps, in the drive people have. They have a different way of seeing the world. And I don't think it's a good one. But I think just thinking that way is somewhat simplistic because after all, the people who left early Well, people who differ from the people who left late because they had the vision that they should leave. And that vision, the ability to see what others did not see early on, perhaps helped them quite a bit in seeing things once they arrived in this country. So they had, first of all, I think there were a different cross section from society.
Oh, yeah.
It was a significant different cross section. By the way, I am not a sociologist or anything resembling that. Okay, but it is different. I mean, the samples of the people I knew, the friends of my family, the view was very different. I mean, I never saw one of the people who were friends of my family. A lot of them, I mean, some of them were people who had gone to the university with my dad, or people who left in that. I never saw my dad, for example, thinking of, well, do you think I can be a good engineer in the US? I mean, to him, this was like, of course, like those are big oinks. I mean, there's never a doubt of that. You know, this was I mean, it was, but I think that's it. So it is not just the regime, it's a cross section of society of the people who left. And I remember quite distinctly, arrived when we first left, that you would hear, you know, like, I mean, we lived in Miami briefly, and then we went to, my family went in Puerto Rico. I mean, we were hoping that we would go back to Cuba. I was a child in Miami Beach, and then we went to Puerto Rico, and because I guess money was running out, and they needed some engineers who could build bridges and roads and so on. But when we arrived, this was, for those of you who have seen any of the stories of, well, have heard of Gabriel Garcia Marquez Macondo, The End of the World. I lived in a place like that, you know?
No.
So, I mean, not as bad as Macondo, but close. Okay, but there was never any, oh, but we would hear then, you know, like, oh, in another town, even smaller than that one, there was a Cuban doctor. I don't know how this guy got there, you know? And then these people, there was a sense of confidence and a sense also of, I mean, I noticed that, I mean, looking back, it was not somebody who, you know, all of a sudden gets a job as an engineer and now you have to eat $30 a pound prosciutto because you need to eat it right away. You know, you save, you invest, and you get ahead.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a different group of people. It's a very different. I don't think that society may exist there now. I am sure that Cuba now, for example, the fantastic writers like Leonardo Padura, for example, and others too. But as a segment of, as a percent of society, I think it is, my guess is that it is significantly smaller than the percent of society of the Cubans who left when I left. Maybe I talk too much, given that I don't know that much. But by the way, anybody who wants to, oh, did you read the Bacardi and the Long Story for Cuba?
Yes,
Everybody?
Yes, that was the last book that we discussed.
Well, I hope, I read that a long time ago. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
Except
Gladys,
what
I
happened
wanted to comment
what
on
happened
your
to one of
book
the
also.
Bacardis at the end.
I wanted to comment on how well your book flows and how your story of your family covers so much about the history of Cuba. And I love that I learned a lot about the Cuban people through my work as a psychologist in Miami for many years because I'm bilingual. And so many of my clients were from different countries in Latin America, but many of them were from Cuba. And I was glad that you were also able to weave in stories of the prison in Cuba because some of my clients were imprisoned at different ages in their lives, and they were really affected by that experience. And so the fact that you included it through the story of a family friend, along with the stories of your own family, I thought was really amazing. You covered so much territory. You brought back so many memories for me that weren't mine, but they were my clients' experiences. And you really brought it to life.
Thank you, Ginger. Thank you so much. Let me tell you the story of Homero, the prisoner. He came to my house several times to plant my calusias around in the back. And when I heard his story, I told him one day, okay, you're gonna have lunch here. I'm going to treat you to lunch. And then you're gonna tell me your story because it's so compelling. And he told me he was so happy because he says, I want people to read this story. I want people to know what I went through, so
Have I don't know if you're aware, there's a wonderful exhibit. I think it's at the Museum of the Cuban Diaspora, but it's the new exhibit on political prisoners, and I hear it's powerful. I haven't been. Martha, you've been, right? And is that at the Museum of the Cuban? Yeah, where is it?
Correct. It just opened. It was in December that they opened this latest exhibit, and it is basically our Cuban history best seen through the eyes of those who suffer the most, the prisoners, the Cuban prisoners, and it's both emotional to go through it because obviously some of us who did not see it firsthand have heard many a story, but for those, but it's also extremely educational. It talks about the pieces that the books generally don't focus on, the betrayal, the different groups within the military, but also the ones that infiltrated it, the people that were contra Fidel. I mean, it talks about a lot of those pieces, and it's all in one setting. So you literally start at the very beginning of that revolution and just walk through. And it also highlights some of the good pieces of the Cuban exile in Miami, at least. And so that also brings a sense of pride at the end, at least in a way. It's all this suffering was not in vain. Some people have taken our name to a different level and highlighted our spirit of survivorship and how to work through it all. So it really encompasses so many different emotions. It's worth it. They say they're going to have it for as long as people come. Entre ustedes y yo, keep coming, keep visiting, visit more than once, because they say that as long as people visit, they'll leave it open.
Yeah, because that's the thing about that museum, that when we were planning our diaspora tour of Miami, they didn't have a lot that was they didn't really have a permanent exhibit. And that strikes me as a really important permanent exhibit. So let's hope they keep it.
Yeah, I think they're making it permanent now, that as far as I know, from the Cuban Diaspora Museum. I was there like a week ago because now they have a lot of different activities. They had some celebration for Jose Marti, and it was a lot of people participated. And last week they had also a Cuban author that recently wrote a book and his presentation. So they have a lot of activities going on, and it's a wonderful museum. Yes.
Good.
Yeah, and remember, this has started there have been a number of exhibits that have attracted a lot of attention. This one in particular started by request. They said many folks just asked after the Pedro Pan exhibit that was last year. They said, well, why not pay attention to the Cuban prisoners? And that's sort of that's what incited them to put it together. Now, I have heard that they don't want to make it permanent. I have heard that they want to keep it for 9 months or longer, just depending on the audience response, because they also want to refocus and maybe consider other aspects of our history. But the good part is you're so right. They're bringing in authors, they're bringing in other topics, they're trying to enhance the audience interest, bring in as many pieces as they can to sort of bring people in.
That's good.
I think it's worth it. If you ever want to come to Miami, for that alone, it's worth that weekend.
I wish, there's so many things in Miami like that I wish they would Zoom. I know, like, for example, one of the bookstores there has book discussions I forget the name of the book, Books and by, I forget the name of the
Books
book.
and Books?
Books and books.
Books and Books. Yeah, but they don't Zoom their, and they don't record their authors' visits. And I think there'd be plenty of people across the country that might be interested in, listening. And I've called the bookstore, said, are you by chance? No, we're not, so I try, but yeah, so I had a couple of questions for you. Whatever happened to Paco and Maria? Did you hear more about Paco and Maria?
Oh, you mean, are you talking to me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, the Paco was the oldest brother of my um the problem is, sometimes, and I'm telling you this as a writer, you encounter situations that are very sensitive and you need to know how to deal with them. I had a few sensitive situations in my book, and one was the divorce of my parents that after I wrote about it, I retrieved the chapter because I said, this is very personal and I didn't want. But then the Paco and Maria situation was that my grandfather started the business with Paco, but then they had a problem. There was a problem,
Right.
and nobody knows too much about it. But that's why they fade away because
Yeah.
there was a discussion between my grandfather and Paco, and they kind of split after a few years.
Right. I was just curious because he was an interesting character, and then we didn't hear more about him, so I didn't know if whatever happened beyond, that last mention. But
Yeah. And
then I
but
also wanted to know about you mentioned that your father, I think it was your father who had a radio station at the house.
yes, for a little time. Once he realized that, what Castro was doing,
Yeah.
he was helping the counterterrorism by running a little radio station where they communicated for their activities.
Oh,
And then
wow.
yes, and then but he wasn't talking on the, he had the station in his house and somebody else was doing the communication and coordinating
Wow.
the activities. But then because of those neighborhood vigilance, they had
Committee.
spotted him, and a lot of people love my dad, so somebody came and said, they know that you're doing this, you better leave the
Gotta go.
island.
Wow, that's pretty risky, to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
This lady that I told you about that ended up in jail, she was working with Francisco, who was the young, sort of charismatic underground leader. She was helping him with underground, anti-revolutionary things. And she
His name was Rogelio González Corso. Francisco was
Francisco,
Rogelio
yeah.
González
That was
Corso.
his code name, I think, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I have a book about him, Francisco, written by Salvador Larua.
La Rúa.
Yeah, Guedes, which I haven't read yet, but I picked it up because what she mentioned Francisco, and then I happened to see that book. But the my she asked my parents to hide some rifles underneath my brother's crib mattress.
Oh my.
And my father, I think, went to jail for like 3 months or something. They discovered that. That was before we left Cuba. But like everybody did their little part, and it was, all of it pretty darn risky. But anyway, I thought that was interesting to me. What did he do? Like what part did he play? Because that was valiant. It's a really valiant thing to do. Sometimes you just get roped into it. Like my mother wasn't a fan. She's like, I don't really want to do this, but you got to get roped into it, and you just do it.
Have to help. Yes.
Yeah.
Gladys, may I speak? All right. I wanted to tell you that I really enjoyed your book, and there were certain areas that I'd like better. You know, like the part that you went to Jamaica with your sister. I thought, my heart went out to you girls because you were so little and you didn't have the language, and the nuns were so bad to you, and you were punished all the time and all that. So that was a lovely chapter.
Let,
I
let,
also,
let- let me
yeah,
clarify something. The nuns were not bad to me. The teacher that used to hit me every morning was
A
a
lay
a
teacher.
regular teacher. Oh,
she
okay.
was not a
Well,
nun. She was a teacher. I still
okay.
remember her, and I was so upset. Yes,
That was still cruel. And
yes, yes.
and the Spanish Civil War, I thought was very interesting.
Wow.
And during Franco and the bombs, they're having to run through the bombs and saving the children and all. That was like a movie.
Yeah.
It was
It really was like
fascinating.
a movie, like The Sound of Music or something.
Yeah,
Only
it was.
not so pleasant, but
Yeah.
um
So kudos to you. It was well told, and I really enjoyed it. My other favorite part was the ending, which I thought was so endearing. I mean, it made you cry. It was just so endearing because my mom also had dementia, and I know how hard it is to get them to even talk, for them to have that connection. I mean, they were divorced and all that, so your heart must have been in your throat. Like, oh,
Yes.
I wonder how they're going to behave. But it turned out to be so beautiful because they could reconnect at certain points. Him telling her the stories and how she said, oh, it was because of my sister, because she was the chaperone. I love that part. It was just such a
She,
wonderful story.
she
And
always
the
said
love,
that. She was always
and the love,
kind of jealous of her sister, and she
yeah.
my mother loved her brothers, but with her sister, she loved her sister, but there was always this little thing that But so that's
And then there's the love in your family that's is so apparent in the book. Even the grandchildren and everybody getting together. So it was a wonderful ending. But I enjoyed everything. There's so much to learn. Your father was a wonderful guy.
oh yeah.
Um, he was admirable, because all he did for the community, having everything, helping out in any way she could. That those are lessons that were passed on to you and your sister, how to treat each other, and it seems like that love has carried on to the next generations. So I admire that in your family. And
Yes.
as far as learning, as far as writing, I also encourage people to write their stories, because not only because of saving the generations, the stories of the past generations, but also for our sake. We're going to be we are ancient already, okay? So our story should be told to the next generations.
right.
That's what I tell all the Pedro Pans. Write your story. There's over 14,000 stories out there. Write them, because each one is unique. Every Cuban has a story, and it should be told. And if you don't know how to do it, then do it like Gladys and I did. Take lessons, learn how to do it,
That's
but
right.
write your stories.
Th-
I
Thank
enjoyed your story tremendously.
you. Thank
Fifi, I should mention, has written her story, and Fifi is also Pedro Pan. So, she has quite a story of her own that we're looking forward to reading soon.
Yeah. I would love to do that. And Fifi, and in reference to your comment and the comment that Ginger had before, one of the satisfaction that I had with my book is that when people that when people that have gone through the same situation, they feel very connected. The story resonates with them. But if they are completely, like I have American friends that they're completely separated, and their comment has been, now I understand better. Your book helped me to understand a lot of the things that they have gone through, what they're feeling, why you know the way they act. And I mean, and that's a big satisfaction if I can make some people understand better how we feel and what we have gone through. I think that's tremendous for me.
Well, have your children, what do your children said about your book? Your girls?
Oh, they are very proud. They love it, and they, what can I say? They knew some of the stories. They never thought I was gonna put it together in a book, and yes, they love the fact that it's gonna be there even after I die for my grandkids, kids, and they will always know about their story. Yes.
That's great. Wonderful. Well, I think we might be done. Yes?
Marta,
Yes,
I
Mike.
wanted to point out some things I don't know if everybody knows.
Yes.
But if you scroll down your page, there's a little circle that says more. And if you click on that, then something comes up that says reactions, settings, so forth. If you go on the reactions, you'll see raise your hand. We can raise our hand. And also, if we want to talk to each other, go to the icon that says chat.
Yeah.
And then something else will come up. And then you can write something, a little note to a specific person or the meeting.
Right. Like we
That's
had
kind of
somebody
fun.
come on who left a message on the group chat, but didn't identify himself or herself. JC phone 2020. I just allowed anybody to come in tonight because I knew that Gladys had invited a number of people.
Yeah, it might be a friend of Gladys, right?
Right.
I don't know who he is.
Thanks for letting me listen in for a bit. So proud to know such a talented writer, scientist, humanist. I really enjoyed learning from this conversation, seeing the laughter and insights. Congrats, Gladys. It's a little late here, so I'm signing off, but they didn't sign off with their name. I don't know who JC is, so I mean, I just let him in.
Can everybody see that?
I can see that.
Yeah, everybody can see that because that's the group chat. Yeah.
The chat.
Do you have any friends in Europe, Gladys? Because you would think it's 6 or 7 hours later.
Maybe
they're there.
I only send it to a few people, so I don't know who that JC is.
Ismail, that's funny.
I'll find out.
We'll see. We'll find out. We'll have to explore that. Yeah, I thought of I thought of sending him a private message saying identify yourself because there was no video either. So, but it was usually I check to see who's coming on, but anyway. But I want to thank you, Gladys, for coming on. I think everybody unanimously enjoyed your book, and especially the stories of the different stages of challenge of your family and how impressive that is. And so you had a really interesting story to tell, and you so well did it. So we appreciate that, and it adds to our understanding of the Cuban experience. We've had a number of people come on that tell their personal stories or who just want to write stories like you did with Homeros, where you just wanted to catalog, write somebody else's stories because it was so important to communicate that story. And so we all have really enjoyed having those experiences of learning about the different people. Whoop, I don't have with Fifi. Learning about the different people's experience, and all have been very different. And I think this is I'm trying to remember, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, Fifi, Rita, others. Is this the first time we've had somebody to write about their generations, other than like the Bacardi book, like a personal, story like this?
Not all the generations, no.
No, I feel like I'm trying to remember if there's been any other story that we've read that has crossed so many generations, going back to the Spanish Civil War and even in the beginning, before. So that that was, I thought, very interesting. Because I think what we've done largely, so a lot of times we read a Pedro Pan story, a Bay of Pigs story, a story like we did, wonderful book that we read about a certain snippet of society that Luis's book was about, which was fascinating too. So we've read a lot of different books about people that Marielitos and so on. And but I don't think, I'm trying to remember, I don't think we've
The
read.
Bacardi story. That's the only one I can think.
Which one?
Bacardi. Bacardi.
Right, but Bacardi was not an author that we like, you know what I mean?
Correct.
Bacardi was
No.
not even, it wasn't,
That
it
was
was
a-
But
written
that's the
by
only one. Yeah.
Correct.
it was written by a journalist. So like a personal story like that of your own family going through, like, was fantastic.
That's why I was trying to differentiate. Bacardi's story was written by someone who may have been, literally paid to do that. But in a sense, this one is a much more personalized.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
interpretation
It's
of-
your story, you know. It's
That is
your
really
story.
beautiful. That's
It wasn't
it took
personal.
courage.
Yeah.
Very
Right.
personal. It took courage
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, we got to know little Gladys
Right.
with her baby doll on her couch for the Three Kings Day, you know.
Oh, that was such a pretty part of the book. So cute. Los Reyes Magos. Yeah, very nice.
That was so funny that there was a point where I think your father said to maybe it was your father said to your mother, enjoy this because it's not going to last. I thought that was so prescient. I mean, like, oh,
My mother said that he did something that because he used to say that
he
no te va
jinxed.
a durar mucho tiempo, disfrútalo, and it happened.
Oh my gosh, he didn't jinx the whole country, did he? But yeah, I remember reading that and going, oh gosh, how jarring looking back now, right? I mean, at the time she probably thought, okay, take it easy. But, but looking back, it was pretty accurate, you know?
He didn't know. He didn't know.
Well, he did know because he had gone through, he had, like, if you look at your family's history, I mean, if you think about it, how many times of peace are there? I mean, we personally here in the United States have lived through a fairly comfortable period. There's all political blah, 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 but we have lived, we live fairly comfortable lives, and then there are these people whose lives are just, just like the lives you recount, and so we have to be grateful for these times of peace and order, and places of peace and order. Yeah. So, well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, your talent, your treasure, all those things. And I look forward to seeing you again. Hopefully you join us.
Yes, no, I have joined, so I'll be back. I just want to say thank you. I'm the one who's very grateful to all of you because let me tell you, after I wrote my book, I love to discuss the different part of and I don't always have that chance. So you have given me that chance to see your impressions, what you feel about each part, and be able to talk about it, and that has been wonderful for me. So I really appreciated your opportunity that you have given me.
Yeah, I always find it's interesting because everybody sort of has a different takeaway and a different perspective and something that really speaks to them in the books. I find this over and over again when we read these books. It's like people will find this or that or the other fascinating. So that's what's great about a book club, because it's not just one person's point of view, but so many,
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
And before we finish, I really want to thank again Susana, because she, like I said, she was my fairy godmother, and she did all my writing, all my chapters, and with her little magic wand, she made it happen. So
So wait, Susana, do I have to sing bippity boppity boo every time I see you?
I think Lomberto started the whole fairy godmother thing, or it was Manny Soto. I don't know who did, but
Who said fairy godmother?
yes, three of them are doing it. So I'm like, I don't know. but for me, every single book has been such a treasure because I learn something and I make a new friend, not just a new author friend, but they're also their families.
The
And
families, I
the
know because
families. I mean, I've grown, close to husbands and wives and children, so that has been really amazing for me. And
that's
then to be able to
wonderful.
take some of their stories and use it in the podcast so that
Oh yeah.
people in other part of the world can also hear at least snippets of these stories.
Well, I tell you, I'm always promoting your podcast to
Oh, thank you.
my friends because I think the thing about your podcast that I particularly liked, 15 minutes in Spanish, 15 minutes in English. So it's not a huge investment of time like so many podcasts can be. So you can really do it fairly easily. But the thing I like about your podcast is it's very positive, you know? It tends to have a positive spirit and a feel, and I like that. But that's how
And thank you for that. And one of the reasons I really chose to do it that way is because the stories that I tell about Cubans that are still on the island, it's very important for me to respect them and respect their story.
of
And
course.
yes, because they give me information that they don't give others, and I just want to make sure that I'm true to them, and that's very important to me. But it is truly amazing that, I mean, we've got Russia listening, China, Korea, all of Europe is listening, part of South America, Central America. So it's pretty amazing. It's a great journey for me.
I just shared on the group chat the name of the podcast. It's called The Green Plantain, and
You
it's on
just looked it up.
podcast platform. Yes, that's it.
Yes,
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 Alvaro, that's it. It's on most, it's on Spotify and
it's on
Apple,
all platforms.
most
Yeah.
of the platforms, so it's
Mhm.
easy enough to find. But I find it very soothing. I find it very, it feels like home, when I listen
Oh, thank you.
Marta, I told Susana that I listen to the Green Plantain while I take a shower.
Well, Fifi, TMI, it's like I'm a very
You know,
visual person.
I,
Now I'm gonna
I put a towel over the monitor.
Just to make
It's very,
sure.
it's all clean. Don't worry
Fifi,
about it.
Fifi,
Just listening.
Fifi, I'm a visual learner. This is too much information for me. Now when I
Yes,
listen to
yes.
the podcast.
You can imagine.
Some people sing. I listen to the Green Plantain.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
it's almost like a
Put a
spa session,
towel.
I think.
Oh,
But anyway, well, again, I want to
thank
thank
you.
everybody for tonight, and again, I'm very grateful to Gladys for coming on tonight, and for Jesus for coming on tonight, and sharing your all the details, the further details about your story. But we are going to carry it with us, which is super nice, and of course, we share it with our families and friends too. So that's another thing. So it's propagating, so. It's all good. So I hope to be able to meet you someday in person. I know Susanna invited me and Betty for that beautiful author luncheon that you hosted, that brunch that you had, right?
It
Wasn't it?
was high tea Cuban style.
Yes.
Why
So
didn't I
no
get
crumpets.
invited? Why didn't
But
I
I
get
heard
invited?
it was lovely, and
It
you
was
had
great.
a beautiful time. So maybe the next time we're in Miami, we can all meet up.
Definitely,
I want to
definitely.
meet the men of the club. I'm dying to meet Luis,
Yeah.
Alvaro, and Ismael. Well, Ismael, you're not in Miami, right?
I'm only like an hour and a half away.
Oh,
I'm close.
He's
that's
in
not
Boca.
you're in Boca. Okay. All righty. So you're with my Jewish friends in Boca.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I have a lot of
Very,
Jewish
very
friends
much
in
so.
Boca. All righty. Well,
You can come down for the Miami Book Fair.
when is
We
that?
will be there.
When is
Yes,
What, in
that?
November?
November. The only problem
November.
is usually the week before Thanksgiving, but Susana may come down also, and we have some plans. So let's
That
see.
sounds lovely. I wish I could. I generally am up in New Jersey visiting my children, and they're up in the Northeast corridor. So we get together, you know, before Thanksgiving through Christmas. That's our, you know, we're in Tampa part of most of the year now, but part of the year we're up north. So, but if I'm in the area, I'll definitely come. That's, you said the week before Thanksgiving?
That's when they usually hold the
Right.
fair.
Right. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you everybody for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Gladys.
Thank
Marta.
you.
Good to see
Thank you.
everybody tonight.
Buenas noches.
Ladies
Buenas
and
Buenas
noches,
noches.
Marta.
Just,
Good night, everybody.
good night, everybody.
bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.